Hi everyone, here we are. We're going to do Proverbs 23 and 24 tonight. So here we go. 23. Excuse me. When you sit to dine with a ruler, note well what is before you and put a knife to your throat if you're given to gluttony. But do not crave his delicacies, for that food is deceptive. Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Don't trust your own cleverness. Cast but a glance at riches, and they're gone. For they'll surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Do not eat the food of a begrudging host. Do not crave his delicacies, for he's the kind of person who's always thinking about the cost. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You'll vomit up the little you've eaten and will have wasted your compliments. You know, that reminds me of a boss that I had about 5 years ago. He threw a company party at his house, and we were all there. And, you know, it was a nice spread. He had a caterer there, and there was, shrimp on ice and oysters and clams and all kinds of stuff and lobsters and steak. Very nice. But the whole time he stood off to the side, eyeing what was going on in a way that was very uncomfortable. And I could tell that he was begrudging doing it and spending that money. And I don't know what he was looking at. I mean, was he making sure everybody was eating the food? I don't know. But it was embarrassing, and I noted it. I'm sure other people were, we all just pretended we didn't see it, but it was terrible. So I know exactly what this means. Let's read it again. Do not eat the food of a begrudging host. Don't crave his delicacies, for he's the kind of person who's always thinking about the cost. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You'll vomit up the little you've eaten and will have wasted your compliments. And it's really true. I ended up walking out on him as far as the job, not at the dinner party. It was after that. But I ended up walking off the job because he was one of those bosses that always has to have someone to pick on. And he would pick who he thought he could do it to. And he would always, it's sort of like at that point, I was the low man on the totem pole. So he would take me into another room, like the conference room, and he would just bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch until one day I just had enough. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. And he was furious that I left, but I couldn't take it anymore. It was unbelievable. And, I remember watching him hire a newbie and then do the same to the newbie and then fire the newbie. And what was strange, and this is very strange, is after he fired him, the guy was in the bathroom crying, and the boss ran up to me and whispered into my ear, I just fired Peter, can you comfort him? Because, he knew that I was a nice woman. And, but after Peter left, he went right back to abusing me. He took the person that he could take. So he had a lot of problems. And unfortunately, he was very sick. And we remember that sometimes the Lord uses sickness to draw people to himself. We remember those dissertations in Job about becoming ill and how the Lord can use that to bring people to their knees so that they will seek him out, whatever it takes. Okay, because it's better to seek out the Lord because of an illness than to go to hell for eternity. Okay, so, this man does have a blood disorder, a blood cancer. I think he has cancer of the blood. Now, what's odd about that is when you think about what blood means, your life is in your blood. So his blood has cancer. So he has a lot of problems, but I don't think that his problems are because he has cancer. It could be the other way around, but don't let me say I'm not trying to make any kind of statement or judgment about how this happened. I'm just saying that this was a boss that was begrudging in so many ways. And his business is still afloat, but I don't know anything about it. I don't wish him evil. We've spoken quite a few times since I left. So, it's all good. All right. So that's my story on that one. Do not speak to fools, for they'll scorn your prudent words. Boy, is that the truth. Do not move an ancient boundary stone. Remember, the Jews set up boundary stones and altars and all kinds of things. Do not move an ancient boundary stone or encroach on the fields of the fatherless, for their defender, capital D, is strong. He will take up their case against you. Apply your heart to instruction and your ears to words of knowledge. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish them with the rod, they won't die. Punish them with the rod and save them from death. Wow. My son, if your heart is wise, then my heart will be glad indeed. My inmost being will rejoice when your lips speak what is right. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but always be zealous for the fear of the Lord. There is surely a future hope for you, and your hope will not be cut off. The Lord is so good. I'm going to move this camera just a little bit so you can see Ollie, because I know a lot of you like to see Ollie. So there we go. Listen, my son, and be wise, and set your heart on the right path. Do not... Do not join those who drink too much wine or gorge themselves on meat. Once again, we have the drunkenness and the gluttonous behavior put together here. For drunkards and gluttons become poor, and drowsiness clothes them in rags. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she's old. Buy the truth. In other words, let it cost you something to get it. And do not sell it. Wisdom, instruction, and insight as well. So buy truth, buy wisdom, buy instruction, and buy insight. And even if it costs you something, make sure you buy it. The father of a righteous child has great joy. A man who fathers a wise son rejoices in him. May your father and mother rejoice. May she who gave you birth be joyful. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes delight in my ways. For an adulterous woman is a deep pit, and a wayward wife is a narrow well. Like a bandit, she lies in wait and multiplies the unfaithful among men. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaints? Who has needless bruises? Who has bloodshot eyes? Those who linger over wine. I'm going to read that again. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaints? Who has needless bruises? Who has bloodshot eyes? Those who linger over wine, who go to sample bowls of mixed wine. Do not gaze at wine when it's red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a snake and poisons like a viper. Your eyes will see strange sights, and your mind will imagine confusing things. You'll be like one sleeping on the high seas, lying on top of the rigging. So way up in the rigging of the ship. They hit me, you'll say, but I'm not hurt. They beat me, but I don't feel it. Well, sure, when you're drunk, you don't feel a thing. When will I wake up so I can find another drink? That's a good and sad description of us when we're addicts. Proverbs 24. Do not envy the wicked. Do not desire their company. For their hearts plot violence, and their lips talk about making trouble. By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it's established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. The wise prevail through great power, and those who have knowledge muster their strength. Surely you need guidance to wage war, and victory is won through many advisors. Wisdom is too high for fools. In the assembly at the gate, they must not open their mouths. Whoever plots evil will be known as a schemer. The schemes of folly are sin, and people detest a mocker. If you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength? Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who guards your life know it? Will he not repay everyone according to what they've done? Let's pick that apart for a minute. First, it starts out with, if you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength? In other words, there's going to be a lot of times of trouble in your life. Don't fall down now, okay? Rescue those being led away to death. Now, we could look at that as people who don't know of God, and they are being deceived and led away through lies. Or we could look at it through what we know now in light of all of the information that's come out about COVID and the lies that have been told and the people that believe it. I know people, good friends of mine, who are stone cold believers in what the mainstream news has said. And we've got documentation now. We have got documentation that is showing us the lies that have been told. There are too many intelligent people out there talking. Too many doctors with credentials talking. So rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter. If you say, but we knew nothing about this. Now, see, I can't say that, and neither can anybody else who's done their research. We know about it, and we are trying to rescue people who are just staggering towards whatever the plan is. I don't know what the plan is. Hasn't been revealed yet, but believe me, when it's revealed, I'll find it and I'll hear about it and I'll speak it. And when I speak it, most people are going to say she's a conspiracy theorist. She's a nut. It's not a theory when you have documented proof. We've got documented proof of election fraud. It's everywhere if you look out there and ask the right questions to Google. I mean, as high up as Candace Owens is saying, look, we've got documented proof. Okay, now there's not a lot we can do about it because the administration that we have is set in place, et cetera, et cetera. I think most of us are just enduring this and hoping it will be over soon. But the point I'm making is, if I find out something, I'm going to speak it. You don't have to believe me, but I research everything that I dare to put out there. And there's a lot I don't put out there. There's some things that I know will be too scary, and there's other things that I don't trust to be true. But I'm constantly gathering and gathering. So it says here, rescue those being led away to death, hold back those staggering towards slaughter. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? In other words, he knows that you know and you're not bothering to tell the truth. The reason these conspiracy theorists talk is because they have to. They're under compunction to tell you the truth. Okay? So, and I honestly believe that we all know, but some people just can't bear to look. And I totally get you. I understand. It's horrible to look. But the bottom line is, it says, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? He knows if you're just letting people die on your watch. Does not he who guards your life know it? So while I'm finding out this information, my life's being guarded by God. For those who don't want to do the research and I tell the truth, I'm doing the right thing, regardless of what you think of me. I'm doing the right thing. God is telling me I'm under a compunction to tell the truth, okay? I won't speak it if I don't think it's the truth. And if I'm wrong, I always come up and say I was wrong. Always. Okay, so you can trust me in that regard. So it says, will he not repay everyone according to what they've done? So we do have a sort of spiritual order to take care of our brothers and sisters and to not withhold knowledge from people. They don't have to accept the knowledge, but I have to tell it. that's where my obedience is. Okay. The direction I'm getting from the Lord is, you better tell. Don't you dare not tell. Now, the people hearing it, they have a choice whether to believe it, listen to it or not. That's their choice, but at least I told, okay? And when we get into Ezekiel, we'll start looking at the watchman on the wall and how the blood will be on the watchman's hands if he did not say something to the people to protect them. Okay, so all of us that are squawking out there, most of us are under a compunction to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth. It's ordered that we say something. Okay, we're not doing it because we're trying to be funny or we're just making up stuff for attention. Nobody's doing that. Okay, I mean, there may be a few, but I don't know who they are. I mean, the people that I fraternize with, we seem to all understand each other and have most of the same news. And we're not going after QAnon stuff and all that. That stuff I don't do. So that should kind of give you a testimony that, you know, at least I'm looking and I'm not giving you stuff I think is silly, that has been proven silly. All right. Eat honey, my son, for it's good. Honey from the comb is sweet to your taste. Know also that wisdom is like honey for you. If you find it, there's a future hope for you, and your hope will not be cut off. Do not lurk like a thief near the house of the righteous. Don't plunder their dwelling place, for though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. But the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. Now, I'm going to bring up something I put up on Facebook that I thought was very interesting. Last night I was doing something and I couldn't get to the remote to change the TV channel because I generally do not watch mainstream news anymore, because every time I see it, I always see something wrong and I can't continue to watch it. I know it's comforting because we've had it all of our life and there's a comfortableness to it, but I don't trust them anymore because there's been too many lies. Well, last night I couldn't get to the remote to switch it. So I ended up, whatever I was doing, I was also hearing mainstream news. 2 things caught my attention. One was they showed a thief who was a very healthy looking white guy with a COVID mask on and some kind of pet rescue, like he was missing a pet, some flyers in his hand. And he was going door to door, knocking on the door to apparently tell people, you know, or ask people, have you seen my missing pet? And when they didn't answer the door, he apparently went around back, broke in and looked for stray money, just like nothing big, and went on. Now, what they said at the end of the whole story, and I remember looking at the guy thinking, what would this guy be doing robbing houses? I mean, he just looked, you know, I'm not saying that criminals have to look a certain way, but usually I can discern things when I look in their faces. Well, of course, you couldn't see much of his face, but he just looked like a strapping guy. Well, it turns out that the catch line, the byline for this whole story was that he was only targeting the homes of Asians. This was in a suburb of Boston. And you know, that rang very weird to me. I didn't think too much of it, but I just thought, what? It wasn't until later that I thought, I wonder if this is just some contrived story so that we can continue to promote racial divide. And, you know, the guy was a white guy. And, you know, like what's going on here? If you have to actually stop and think that the news could be lying to you, well, I suggest to you that will shake you to the core. Okay, if you really have to stop and say, you know, is my friendly news reporter on Channel 5 actually giving me a song and dance? To actually imagine something like that happening is earth-shaking, really. And that's the resistance in listening to anyone who tells a different story, okay? But when you know things like there are cults out there and all kinds, when you know there's a big plan, a big satanic plan to enslave mankind and carry most of them to hell, then you start to believe that Satan does have people in places of power, that they are concocting things to bring this plan into motion. And one of the plans that it seems is to come into motion is some kind of a race war. All right, so the second story was a very normie-formy looking woman, probably younger than me, probably in her 40s or whatever. She was basically a housewife, and I don't understand in what capacity she was liking gay people, but somehow it was known that she was very supportive of the gay community, and all of a sudden she gets a letter on her doorstep. Now, if you think that this letter might have been put together by some kind of a cult forwarding an evil agenda for the end of the world, it makes this almost funny. Or you could just swallow it hook, line, and sinker and say, wow, that's really bad, that someone would do this. But let me tell you how the letter was. The letter was a piece of paper folded in half, just white paper. And on the front of it, in a childlike scrawl, like that made no sense at all and looked very weird, it said, "From your dear friend," or something like that. It was very weirdly drawn. And then she opened it up and it was just glued on swastikas, and they didn't show us the gay slurs, but apparently there were gay slurs written in there too. And so I thought, those were the two main stories, local news here. And I thought, okay, so the first story is there's a white guy going around targeting Asians. That's what I can take away from that. He's not really getting a lot of money. He's just going around to the back door if they don't answer and kicking it in and looking for loose change. He's not taking stereos, TVs, nothing like that. Didn't look like a junkie, nothing. The second story is a very normal white woman who supports gays, gets a weird scrawled, like serial killer letter left on her doorstep with slurs against gays that they didn't show us, didn't even block out any writing, just showed us a white ditto sheet with little swastikas glued on it. And I'm like, what's this about? Okay, now, the idea that a crisis actor could be hired, the woman, the housewife, to do something like this is bizarre. But guess what? If you look up crisis actors, you'll find out that we have crisis actors. What do they use crisis actors for? They use them in role plays for police and army people to get into mock real life situations and how would they deal with it. That's what crisis actors are. Okay, are there groups out there that hire crisis actors, create narratives in order and put them on mainstream news to bring division, to bring fear? I don't know. But I will tell you that I suspect it. I suspect it. And when I think about the level of subterfuge that would have to go on to do this, it's really awful. It's freaky. Okay. So I don't suspect everything I see, but that stood out to me as very weird in this climate. If we were in a different climate, I think that it would be more believable. But being in the climate that we're in, I'm not so sure that I trust anything that promotes more division between us, because we need to be together right now. So anyway, dissertation over. So this is, I'm going to read this again, 24:15. Do not lurk like a thief near the house of the righteous. Don't plunder their dwelling place. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. Do not gloat when your enemy falls, when they stumble. Don't let your heart rejoice, or the Lord will see and disapprove and turn his wrath away from them. Do not fret because of evildoers, or be envious of the wicked, for the evildoer has no future hope, and the lamp of the wicked will be snuffed out. Fear the Lord and the King, my son, and don't join with rebellious officials. This is an age-old problem. For those two will send sudden destruction on them, and who knows what calamities they can bring. Fear the Lord and the King. Okay, my son, don't join with rebellious officials. For those two will send sudden destruction on them, the Lord and the King. And who knows what calamities they can bring. These are also sayings of the wise. To show partiality in judging is not good. Whoever says to the guilty, you are innocent, will be cursed by peoples and denounced by nations. but it will go well with those who convict the guilty, and rich blessing will come on them. See, we totally have a responsibility to do the right thing at all times. And so, but it will go well with those who convict the guilty, and rich blessing will come on them. An honest answer is like a kiss on the lips. Put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, build your house. So don't build your house in a messy field. Get the field in order. Do not testify against your neighbor without cause. Would you use your lips to mislead? Boy, that's what I just was just talking about. Do not say, I'll do to them as they've done to me. I'll pay them back for what they did. I went past the field of a sluggard, past the vineyard of someone who has no sense. Thorns had come up everywhere. The ground was covered with weeds, and the stone wall was in ruins. I applied my heart to what I observed and learned a lesson from what I saw. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. I love you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. There's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. We are going to do chapter 25 tomorrow. Think about what I said, okay? I don't care. You know, I'm already thought of as crazy for being a Christian. So what more? And Christians are telling the truth too, and we're called crazy. So what is it if I tell the truth about what I can see with my own eyes with our current administration and the state of the world? I certainly don't know everything, but I know enough. So what is it to me to be called crazy about that stuff? It's nothing, because that's what they do to people who tell the truth in this world. Jesus Christ was crucified for it. That's how bad it can get, okay? Kill the truth tellers, all right? So I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. Pray for me. I'm praying for you. Read my testimony of Sugar Baby and her eyeball. It's healed. I love you. See you later. Bye-bye.